Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to talk about Hank Green getting cancer, and what is the content, right? So I think it's an interesting question nowadays, is why do people love Dungeons and Dragons so much, and why does Dungeons and Dragons just absolutely destroy every OSR and every indie game out there, and like nothing can compete with it? And the answer is the cancer is the content. All right, so let's get into this. All right, so Hank Green. Do you know who Hank Green is? Hank Green is the brother of John Green. John Green is a massively successful YA author. So John Green wrote, what did John Green write? He wrote Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, An Abundance of Catherines, Turtles All the Way Down, and he's an incredibly successful YA author. I have read his content. I'm very familiar with John Green. Hank Green is famous because John Green is famous, okay? Hank Green is John Green's brother. Hank Green just got cancer. He has his own YouTube channel, and he announced on his YouTube channel that he has cancer, right? He announced that last week, and I actually did a video on it. And this week, he did a tier list of every mainstream media site that covered his cancer. And by the way, I covered his cancer, right? Now, I didn't make the list. That's okay. Because I'm a little off the grid. I get it, all right? But Hank Green did a tier list, D tier, S tier, A tier, did a tier list of everybody who covered his cancer. It was like, I like this about their coverage of my cancer, and I like this about and I didn't like this about their coverage of my cancer. What's really fascinating is this is the part people don't understand about Dungeons and Dragons. The cancer is the content. So Hank Green has a YouTube channel. He got cancer. He's talking about it. He's talking about it openly and publicly. The cancer is the content. It's literally the content. Dungeons and Dragons, the Pinkertons are the content. Dungeons and Dragons, the 2023 OGL Crisis, the 2023 Manic Panic is the content. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is the content. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves being a critical success is the content. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves being a commercial failure is the content, right? That's the point. If you're a thing people care about, they care about every single aspect of your thing. And if you are not a thing, if you are OSE and no one in the nerd world knows that you're old school essentials, nobody cares no matter what happens to you, right? But if people care about you, they want to know the sandwich you ate on Tuesday. And that's the issue. Dungeons and Dragons, the rules are the content. Your campaign is the content. Dungeons and Dragons, every new D&D canon hardback, is the content, right? But the events are the content. The 1983 Satanic Panic is the content, right? That's the point, right? Like all these other OSR and indie games are like, oh, why can't you guys just behave yourselves and not get into any entertaining, mischievous trouble like us? Why can't you be boring like us, Hasbro? Hasbro's moving. They're doing things. They're crushing it, right? They're bushwhacking, right? The reason there are things to cover on Dungeons & Dragons is they absolutely never set a foot on clear ground. They bushwhack every step of the way, right? And there are thorns that cut their forearms, and they bleed. And the bleed is the content, right? That's the point. And the reason nobody cares about Tales of the Valiant, and nobody cares about OSE, and nobody cares about Five Torches Deep, is they're copiers. They are walking a path that's already been bushwhacked. Everything new that happens in tabletop role-playing game, right now the energy is coming from Dungeons and Dragons. And they and the OSR and the indies are just following a bushwhacked path. And it's why nobody cares and nobody talks about them. Right? And what has to happen for an OSR or an indie game to bust out and do something real is they have to bushwhack. And that's one of the reasons why Shadow Dark is so important, is it bushwhacked some new territory in the OSR. What if the OSR was not super regressive and super prejudiced? What if it was created by a progressive, tolerant creator? That's new. That's super new in OSR. That's bushwhacked path in OSR, right? What if OSR wasn't packed like a burrito full of prejudice? that's a bushwhacked path, right? And so really, really interesting. So this is the key, right? Anybody, if you're coming for Dungeons & Dragons, you cannot just make a good game. You have to have talent and exposure. You have to create a good game, and then you have to pay the sacrifices that Gary Gygax made to make it so that the world outside of tabletop role-playing games cares about it. That's the reason why Candela Obscura matters, because people know Matthew Mercer. They know Critical Role. There's talent and exposure, right? The cancer is the content. On Dungeons & Dragons, these mischievous, fun, super entertaining little events that happen with Dungeons & Dragons every single month, that is the content, right? You have to understand that. As much as the rules, as much as your campaign. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.